those gradations. Shakespeare, life energy. Dante, he would call him as concentrated perceptive energy, that's tapas. Life energy and tapas are two different things. Concentrated perceptive energy. In Kalidasa, the quantum is that of energy of the light in sensuous beauty. So there is not only sensuousness, but there is a light in sensuous beauty. And Homer's voice is a quantum of the luminous music of the spheres. The word unit, the language quantum in Sri Aurobindo's poetry is a packet of consciousness force, a concentrated power of light, instinct with a secret delight. So we have the gradations: Shakespeare, life energy; Dante, concentrated energy, perceptive energy; Kalidasa, sensuous beauty; Homer, music of the spheres; and Sri Aurobindo, we have consciousness force, chit tapas, a concentrated power of light. Listen, these are the last lines from Sri Aurobindo's poem, Sri Aurobindo's Savitri, Book 9, Canto 1. Lone in the silence and to the vastness bared, against midnight's dumb abysses piled in front, a columned shaft of fire and light she rose. O word, cry out the immortal litany, built is the golden tower, the flame child born. Well, this is only to give you an idea of what we are looking for. So when we read about Shakespeare and Dante not being philosophers, we should not think that we are degrading them. On the contrary, we are having a beautiful poetic analysis to see who fits in where. And I've told you before also that this is the grand contribution of Sri Aurobindo to philosophy, to literature, to human consciousness, where he does not reject anyone. The beauty of Sri Aurobindo is he places everybody in the right order. It's like, in this cosmic puzzle, Sri Aurobindo finds a place for every thinker, every poet, every scientist, every philosopher, every yogi. So he never says, no, this is bad, this should be rejected. Because after all, this is cosmos, and we have all our places there. So till now people rejected this thought, Shankaracharya rejected Ramanuja rejected that illusionism, somebody rejected Buddhism. All fine. Historically it may be good. But here is one master who does not reject Ramanuja or Shankara, Buddha or Vallabha. Nobody. But the beauty is just makes the cosmic puzzle complete and gives it to man and says, this is your world. There's no religion that's greater, there's nothing anti-Muslim, anti-Christianity, anti-Hinduism. They've all got their place in this beautiful evolutionary march. So that is the gift Sri Aurobindo has given to us, showing us the harmony, the beauty, the gradation of consciousness, and then this embracive attitude, is remarkable. So when I see Sri Aurobindo's poetry also, it's the same thing. He doesn't reject anybody, he has given a place to all of us. And to continue the reading here, and yet what can be more poetic in essence than philosophy, if by philosophy we mean, as it should mean, spiritual truth and spiritual realization? What else can give the full breath, the integral force of poetic inspiration, if it is not the problem of existence itself, of God, soul and immortality? Things that touch, that are at the very root of life and reality. What can most concern man? What can strike the deepest fount in him, unless it is the mystery of his own being, the why and the whither of all? But mankind has been taught and trained to live merely or mostly on earth, and poetry has been treated as the expression of human joys and sorrows, the tears and mortal things of which Virgil spoke. You see, try to catch this very subtle thing, that poetry must deal with God, soul and immortality, or with man, nature and God. Every great poetry does so. But why is it that we don't appreciate? Because we are so used to, as he says, live merely or mostly on earth, so we require the savor of earth. The thrill of the flesh has been too sweet for us, and we have forgotten other sweetnesses. It's always the human element that we seek in poetry, but we fail to recognize that what we obtain in this way is humanity in its lower degrees, its surface formulations, and at its minimum magnitude. So most of our present contemporary poetry is just this: sensuousness, surface reality, humanity at its lower degrees. So I can now understand we require a higher consciousness to appreciate higher poetry. It's as blunt as that. Sri Aurobindo has said this many a time in Savitri, in his letters which I have read out to you. If you want to appreciate Savitri, it requires a new consciousness. We cannot be claiming, or we cannot be saying, no, I want to remain on my mental, vital, physical consciousness and appreciate Savitri. It's not possible. So here we see Nalinida explaining. Well, rest of the article you may read for yourself, but there's one more para I'd like to read before I go forward. Sri Aurobindo has dealt with spiritual experiences in a different way. He has not clothed them in human symbols and allegories, in images and figures of the mere earthly and secular life. He presents them in their nakedness, just as they are seen and realized. He has not sought to tone down the rigor of truth with contrivances that easily charm and captivate the common human mind and heart. Nor has he indulged, like so many philosophers, in vague generalizations and colorless or too colorful truisms that do not embody a clear thought or rounded idea, a radiant judgment. Sri Aurobindo has given us in his poetry thoughts that are clear-cut, ideas beautifully chiseled. He is always luminously forceful. That's what I was trying to explain when I gave you the image of the Himalayas. Clear-cut, and as he puts it bluntly, he presents them in their nakedness just as they are seen and realized. He has not sought to tone down the rigor of truth with contrivances that easily charm and captivate the common human mind and heart. That is why we fumble and we cannot appreciate Sri Aurobindo. We are not able to, because of this nakedness of the truth. And that is where I said the Himalayan beauty is absolutely, and as puts it, and Nalinida has given a very important word, just that they are seen and realized by Sri Aurobindo. Seen and realized by Sri Aurobindo. So there is no contrivancy to really tone down, to charm, to appease the modern poet. He said, this is me, and as he has given many letters in Savitri, where Amalkiran says, why do you use eternity, infinity so many times? He says, I'm not using a word for the sake of using it. That's my naked experience, the real, the basic experience. So he says, what can I do if that is my experience? I'm not trying to please you, say, hey, I'm not trying to create an image and say, I'm great because I'm all the time speaking of eternity and infinity. So, he says he's beautiful, clear-cut, beautifully chiseled, he is always luminous. I'll read out one stanza from a poem. I'm sure all of you know the poem Who. If you have heard Karan Singh, you'll always remember, he will always end his talk by reciting the poem Who. And this is the last stanza of the poem Who. I'm not just, he has given an example, but I find that the nakedness of truth, no contrivances, it's a bare truth for the sake of truth. It is He, H capital, the Supreme. It is He in the sun who is ageless and deathless, and into the midnight His shadow is thrown. When darkness was blind and engulfed within darkness, He was seated within it immense and alone. Not one flowery image, not one extra word. It's bare fact. And when I was reading that, I remember another great sukta, Nasadiya Sukta from our Vedas. And please remember, it is not a copying. It is Sri Aurobindo's own experience. And an experience that takes us back to the Vedas. There's a Nasadiya Sukta here, is a hymn of creation. I've read this before, read it for you before too. But this is the hymn of creation, and the similarity is so close. I'll bring out the line when it comes to that. Let me read the stanzas. You see how Sri Aurobindo catches the essence of this experience himself. Then was neither existent nor non-existent. The mid-world was not, nor the sky, nor what is beyond. What enveloped it, and where? In whose protection? What was the water, unfathomable and deep? Then was neither death nor deathlessness, nor any indication of day and night. The one breathed without breath, by its self-law. Other than that was nothing else, nor aught beyond it. In the beginning was darkness hidden by darkness, and all was an ocean of inconscience. You see the same line. In the beginning was darkness hidden by darkness, and Sri Aurobindo says, when darkness was blind and engulfed within darkness, he was seated within it, immense and alone. And here the Vedas say, in the beginning was darkness hidden by darkness, and all was an ocean of inconscience. When that lay concealed by endless fragmentation, the one came to be by the power of his infinite austerity. Of course, the one is the supreme. I think we know that philosophy now, that the supreme also hid himself in the inconscience, and evolution begins from there. So when Sri Aurobindo is saying he was seated within it, immense and alone, the Vedas are saying they lay concealed by endless fragmentation. That means the many were born, the manyness came forward, the one became the many. In the beginning that moved as desire within, which was the first seed of mind, the seers, having meditated in their hearts, discovered the connection of the existent in the non-existent. Well, the poem goes under 3 stanzas, but there's a beautiful line, verse I would like to read out. After talking about all that, the poet says, who truly knows? Who here may declare it? Whence it is born? Whence indeed this creation? You see, the whole idea behind this Nasadiya Sukta is in the beginning there is only the Supreme One, nothing else. There was neither existent nor non-existent. There was neither death nor deathlessness. There was neither time nor timelessness, because the creation didn't even begin. He's describing a situation where manifestation did not begin. So there was neither death nor non-existent, nor existence, nor the time. So it is all the darkness. But then he says, who truly knows? Who here may declare it? Whence it is born? Whence indeed this creation? Even the gods were subsequent to the world's emergence. Then who knows from whence it arose? Well, all of you know, if you have read the mother story of creation, the gods was created in the second creation. So when the first creation happened, when the whole thing came down to the level of inconscious, gods were not there. So this is exactly the same idea that we get in the Vedas. Even the gods were subsequent to the world's emergence, then who knows from whence it arose? That out of which this creation has come into being, whether it upheld it or if it did not. He who is the Lord of all this in the highest heaven surely knows it, or perhaps he does not. See, he says even the Supreme doesn't know, because you see, it is a paradox. Either the Supreme knows it, does not know it. Because at that time the question of knowledge didn't come forward. At that time the question of consciousness was not there. Because it is the consciousness was withdrawn into the Sat. Later it becomes Sat, Chit and Ananda. So in the beginning there is only the Sat, the Supreme non-existent, non-manifest. When manifestation begins, out of the Sat comes forward consciousness. And out of the combination of Sat and Chit, there is the Ananda. But that's the second level, we have discussed that in our previous class. So, we are discussing in the Vedas the situation of the Sat alone. So, I brought this poem only to show you how Sri Aurobindo too is almost Upanishadic in his tone, in his rhythm, in the single poem of Who. I mean, the whole of Who is such a beautiful rhythm describing about Shiva and Krishna and all that. Suddenly the last stanza goes up, it is He in the Sun who is ageless and deathless. I mean, it's like a mantra, you see, you can almost hear the reverberations. He was seated within it, immense and alone. Well, that was the poem, that is what is Sri Aurobindo, the truth, the bare truth. Sometimes it's unbearable, we cannot understand. But then, well, it's a beautiful article, I have no time to read it, but I'll give you the last paragraph, just where it summarizes. And if there is something in the creative spirit of Sri Aurobindo which tends more towards the strenuous than the genial, the arduous than the mellifluous, and which has more of the austerity of Vyasa than the easy felicity of Valmiki, however, it might have affected the ultimate value of his creation according to certain standards. It has illustrated once more that poetry is not merely beauty and power, it is not merely sweet imagination, but creative vision. It is even the rik, the mantra, that impels the gods to manifest upon earth, that fashions divinity in man. You see, we have had, in fact, not only the quotes, all these poems about by Rabindranath Tagore, by contemporary poets, who are there discovering the image of beauty, giving us a beautiful image of Wordsworth, the daffodils, the wayside flowers. All these are images of beauty. But then great poetry has beauty combined with power. And when beauty and power are combined, there is the truth. As I told you in my last class also, that great poetry, at least this future poetry that we see in Savitri, is a combination of truth, beauty and delight. When you find in poem these three, that is the future poetry. And that is what we find essentially in Savitri. Truth to the bare, beauty to the minimum, and delight to the maximum. So that is what is the seer Sri Aurobindo gives us. So you see, friends, it's not so easy to understand Savitri in its words, but I'm giving you all this so that you can keep this in your mind, and then at the back of your mind, if these things can work when you're reading Savitri, I won't say your understanding increases. Yes, it does. But what increases is your delight of the discovery. You see, there could be a satisfaction of reading and says, yeah, it's a beautiful poetry. But the delight of the discovery is so intense. And that is what we are pursuing in Savitri. And at least for me, I mean, I apologize if others do not agree, but each one to his own experience. But if I know about anything about Savitri, I'm just putting across to you what I feel is my experience. It's not the question of trying to convince you, but I'm sharing with you, as you see in my class, is my discovery. In fact, I discovered most of this just today. So, again and again I am telling you, this class for me is very special because somebody is behind me to help me discover Savitri. And as it is said, the speaker learns most. The speaker learns best in a class. And I learn the most because there's a joy of discovery. So it puts me, today is Monday, Savitri class, and then I go on with it. And my wife says, why don't you prepare a day before? But Monday is the day of discovery, I suppose, not Sunday. So it's a great joy. So that's why I don't mind. I have no time, no pressure to finish this, or when it is finished, it is finished. So I have a few minutes more. I'd like to continue reading there. Now here, so we see this line, a seer was born, a shining guest of time. For him mind's limiting firmament ceased above. In the griffin forefront of the night and day, a gap was rent in all concealing vault. The conscious ends of being went rolling back. The landmarks of the little person fell. The island ego joined the continent. You see, that's why I call this integral yoga and Savitri. Here is one man, one person, who is describing exactly what is happening to him in his own yoga. You see, he has had the psychic contact. He connects the superconscious, that means what is beyond the mind. And then when this horizons of the mind increase, suddenly there is a great vision. A seer is born. And then what are the other reactions or other responses? For him the mind's limiting firmament ceased above. The mind's, and then he calls it the other one, all concealing vault. Mind is considered as a vault. In fact, there's a line from the Isha Upanishad, the face of truth is hidden by a golden lid. That remove, O fostering sun, for the law of the truth, for sight. Sometimes it's not just the emotions. The joy is so intense. You see, the face of truth is hidden by a golden lid. Isha Upanishad. And then this golden lid is this overmind. So the face of truth is the supermind. So the Upanishadic rishis had said, beyond this overmind there is the face of truth, but it's covered by a vault, like you have a vault here. So he's saying, the face of truth is hidden by a golden lid. That remove, O fostering sun. The sun is the supramental sun. He said, please remove this vault. For the law of the truth. Satyam, Ritam, Brihat. Law is that rhythm. For the law of truth, for sight. For sight, for darshana, for the experience. So you imagine what an aspiration is there in the Upanishad. It says, O Lord, O Sun, O Truth, remove this golden lid. Our mental is golden, no doubt about it. And because it is golden, nobody has gone beyond that. Because we are so mesmerized by this beautiful vault that we didn't want to see the real sky beyond. And remember, sorry to say, many years back I was at Las Vegas. The Americans would know well. I went into a building where there was this artificial sky. I really thought, I looked up and I said, wow, what a beautiful sky, beautiful stars. But the person said, no, this is artificial. The real sky is beyond. But we are so mesmerized by this artificial creation, we don't even look for the real sky. So here is golden vault, golden lid. And of course, somebody on 29th February 1956 broke that golden vault, golden lid, and let that supramental come down. So that was the great work of the Mother. That vault is that door which she bangs with one stroke of her huge hammer. And then the vault was broken apart, and there flooded the supermind. Well, this is not supermind, but this vault that Sri Aurobindo is describing here is the mental, is the mind's vault. So he says, a gap was rent in the all-concealing vault. The conscious ends of being went rolling back. I mean, just imagine the experience that my limits, my limitations, they go rolling back. What does it mean? The expansion. I mean, consciousness is expanding. The mind's vault is broken. There's a gap in that vault, all-concealing vault. And of course, the mental vault is all-concealing. We cannot see beyond. We don't go beyond. So all that is happening to him, and his mind's limiting firmament seized above in the griffin forefront of the night and day. The landmarks of the little person fell. So this is sudden explosion of the self. The mind breaking its barriers, the consciousness going beyond its barriers. Then what happens? The island ego joined its continent. I mean, that's a supremely beautiful line. So here is the sadhak, poet, Sri Aurobindo, who becomes universal. The island ego, the one, we are all in this island ego. And we all want to really cherish this island ego, but knowing not that once this island ego joins the continent, what great benefits there are. All these limits are broken, the mind's firmament is broken, and as it says beautifully, the conscious ends of being rolls back. That is the beauty when the island becomes a part of the continent. The continent is the divine, the island is you. But no, we want to remain in this island, cherish this island, flourish this island, knowing not that the continent is so close, and yet we say, oh my God, that's too big. The continent is the unknown spot. I do not know what will happen. So the fear of the unknown is always there, because this island, you can go around, you have limitations, you have your limits, you know what's happening left and right. But this is Ashrapati. Overpassed was this world of rigid limiting forms, life's barriers opened into the unknown. I mean, I can just see, I can just feel the person Sri Aurobindo pulsating through this experience. Overpassed was this world of rigid limiting forms. Life's barriers open to the unknown. I mean, that is the universal, the cosmic consciousness. And abolished were conceptions, covenants. And striking off subjection's rigorous clause, annulled the soul's treaty with nature's nations. And I wish we just pray we had a glimpse of this experience. And what a marvelous thing it must be. Well, as I said, the more I read, the more I bow down to Sri Aurobindo. Here is a great master, beyond description. So he says, abolished were conceptions, covenants. You see, we have a kind of an agreement with nature that when you are born here, the soul itself gets into a signed, bonded agreement. What does it say? Striking off subjection's rigorous clause. You see, the tragedy is that the soul, when it comes into matter, into the body, it signs a treaty that it is at the behest, at the call of Prakriti. He says, I surrender to you. So there's a kind of a treaty where the spirit is subjugated, is under the subjection of nature of Prakriti. But here with Ashwapati is just that. What happened? Striking off the subjection's rigorous clause. That covenant was struck off, was cancelled. In the case of Ashwapati, because now he's going into the universal, annul the soul's treaty with nature's nations. So all this covenants, treaty, all that is cancelled. Because now the island ego has joined the continent. So nothing of the old remains, nothing of the covenants remains. He is free. He is freed. And then he says, all the grey inhibitions were torn off and broken the intellect's hard and lustrous lid. Truth unpartitioned found immense sky room, an empyrean vision saw and knew. The bounded mind became a boundless light. The finite self mated with infinity. I mean, it's too good. I mean, you cannot utter the delight, the joy. I mean, every word is irreplaceable. And yet it is so palpable, He says, all the grey inhibitions were torn off. Inhibitions of the mind, of the vital, of the mental, limitations, prejudices. There's such a liberation. And all that why? Because of the simple island ego joining its continent. And don't forget the word its. Its continent. Because actually this island is a part of that continent. It belongs to that continent. So it belongs to that. So it's gone back to its mother, to its continent, to its parent. And because of that annihilation of the ego, you see what liberation, what freedom, and everything, and broken the intellect's hard and lustrous lid. I told you about the golden lid, the same word here. And lustrous. Our mind is golden lid. Mind is lustrous lid. It's full of shining, it's full of charm, full of attraction. All this is gone. Truth unpartitioned found immense sky room. You see, why the word unpartitioned? Why? How can there be truth partitioned? It is there, it is partitioned because of the mind. It's the mind which partitions truth. But once the mind's barriers are broken, it finds the sky room. An empyrean vision saw and knew. A sublime vision is there. And what? The bounded mind became a boundless light. Wow. It's not just the mind, it's not thought. It is light. You see, that's what happens when we go beyond the mind. Thoughts cease to be. We have only the vision, we have the light. But the thought waves cannot even enter. So that is the boundless life, a light. And the finite self mated with infinity. So the finite and the infinite, they come together, they merge, they coalesce, they unite. His march now soared into an eagle's flight. Out of apprenticeship to ignorance, wisdom upraised him to her master craft and made him an arch mason of the soul, a builder of the immortal secret house, an aspirant to supernal timelessness, freedom and empire called to him from on high. Above mind's twilight and life's starlit night, there gleamed the dawn of a spiritual day. Even after that, it's still the dawn of a spiritual day. Well, we will discuss this, but remember, what heights must be the spirituality that out of all these liberations of the mind, the life and all that, still Shravana calls it is the dawn of a spiritual day. He has yet to move forward. There's greater light, there's greater consciousness awaiting him. So we are going to see what will happen as so he grew into his larger self. Well, we'll stop there. We'll go back to a few lines next time in our class. Because these are the words, you see, beautiful. You see, really, Sri Aurobindo is a master architect, using every little chip of word so beautifully. He says, out of apprenticeship to ignorance. What is this apprenticeship? As all of us know, we are apprentices to in a class, in an engineering class, to a carpenter, to an we become apprentice to learn something from the other person. We are under the person. But here he says, his march now soared into an eagle's flight. I'm sure you have all watched National Geographic and seen the eagle's flight. A measureless flight, an open sky, nothing to challenge it, nothing to stop it. So here was Ashwapati on an eagle's flight. And what happens? Out of apprenticeship, you see, when he flies into that measureless, immense space of consciousness, his apprenticeship to ignorance, wisdom appraised him to her master craft. You see, he is no more an apprentice to ignorance. Imagine, we are all apprentices to ignorance. But if I am an apprentice to somebody, what does it mean? That other person is my teacher. That I am becoming your student, your apprentice, in order to learn from you. That means ignorance itself is a teacher for all of us. So for a while, ignorance is our teacher. We are all under this ignorance. But unfortunately, we do not fly beyond it. So we take this teacher for good, forever, and we live in this. Whereas here, wisdom appraised him to her master craft and made him an arch mason of the soul. So out of this flight, he goes up, and then wisdom takes him beyond. He becomes an arch mason, a sculptor, and a builder of the immortal secret house, an aspirant to supernal timelessness. And the last line here is beautiful. Freedom and empire called to him from on high. See, the freedom, of course, we all understand is this. Freedom in Ashwapati is freedom from ignorance, freedom from these bounds, freedom from these limitations, freedom from this mind's lustrous lid. All that is the real freedom, not the freedom of the ego, the freedom when you get beyond the ego. And now Ashwapati is in that mood where there's freedom from ego, freedom from ignorance. He is no more an apprentice, and then he goes beyond. And then freedom and empire called to him from high. You see, there is, in India, there's a concept of Swarajya and Samrajya. So there is you are the king of what you see around, and you are a free person, a king of your own self. So you gain, in our Indian psychology it is said, you have to become the Swarajya, become the king of one's own kingdom within, and then Samrajya, whatever is outside. So once you gain freedom within, then you gain the kingdom outside. So now the Ashwapati was this. He had the freedom and the outer empire. Above mind's twilight and life's star-led night, there gleamed the dawn of a spiritual day. It's still the mind's twilight. So now Ashwapati, after, this was I can imagine, this was a stage of transition, breaking the bonds of nature, of ego, of mind. So once he is free from all that, well, I wish there was an artist in the class who could really imagine and paint this picture. I'm sure Huta has done that, a lot of that. Breaking the lower bonds, and now he soars like the eagle into the skies. And that is the beginning of a spiritual day. His own spiritual day begins then. What has he been doing all this while? Psychicization, breaking the bonds. For us, that would be the end of all our spiritual endeavors, if at all we did anything. But for him, it's just the beginning, the dawn of a spiritual day. So that is Sri Aurobindo perfect. There's never an end. He moves on. There's no light, there's no height of consciousness that has arrested him. He says that is one more step. What am I quoting? The mother's line, you remember?
One more step to eternity.
One more step towards eternity. Mother's message on 1972, 15th of August. So you see, even Sri Aurobindo is one more step towards eternity. That is the vision of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. There's no end. Eternity means eternity. It's not something, endless. So is Sri Aurobindo. His experiences, all these are one more step in eternity. Well, friends, we will stop here. I think we really require a whole week to absorb the delight and the joy. I don't think we can do it every other day.